You are listening to a BEACHGLASS media podcast.
Welcome back to Simple Times Podcast, Simple Sessions. On today's episode, I sit down with a coworker of mine named Juan Chamorro, and we have a really lively discussion about being a father, about working for the post office, some sciencey stuff, and some philosophical stuff. So we get a little bit complicated because that goes against the simple motif that we have here on Simple Times Podcast. So it does get a little complicated at the back end of the show, but I think it's worth a listen. So please, I hope you enjoy this show. Unfortunately, Marcelo is away from the BEACHGLASS Media studio, so it's just me and a guest one-on-one, and I hope you find this conversation interesting. Here it is. Simple Sessions with Juan Chamorro. My guest here today is Juan Chamorro. He's a coworker of mine. We work at the post office together, and I just want to introduce him. He is coming here from the City of Commerce all the way down to BEACHGLASS Media, the studio. Welcome, Juan Chamorro.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
I'm so thankful that you're here, and I'm so happy that we're doing this. And welcome to the studio. I hope you feel at home here.
Yeah. This is an interesting studio you have here. It's part gym, part hardware workbench, and part man cave. I think it's just a really good setup. Makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah, it's been my dream to have my own studio. So my wife, that's all her workout equipment over there, and then I have my little computer microphone set up with my electric drums right here because I've always wanted to have a recording studio. So I'm kind of making that dream a reality, but right now I'm just loving the podcast world that I'm a part of, and so thankful to have you here in the studio, and we're going to talk about all kinds of good stuff. So thank you for coming to Simple Times, Simple Sessions. And for our listeners, just to let you know, the Simple Sessions are a little deviation from the normal podcast feed. I mean, it's still on the podcast feed, but sometimes it's a one-on-one conversation with a guest. Sometimes me and Marcelo talk about a specific topic. Obviously, today Marcelo won't be on this podcast, but yeah, you can always go back and listen to our other stuff. And the last Simple Sessions we did was called Don't Drink the Kook-Aid, where we talked about Reverend Jim Jones. So look that one up on the feed if you're interested. But back to today's guest, Juan. I just have to say, how does it feel like to be the Nicaraguan Terminator? Like, I swear, when I first met you, you were this tall dude, a little bit taller than me. And, for people who don't know me, I'm about 6'2". And Juan, you're a little bit taller than me. And you're like this ripped man, like just, you look like you can tear down columns in ancient Greece. The columns that, their architecture, like you could, like Samson in the Bible, just knock them down.
I think I need longer hair, though.
Oh, yeah. Definitely grow out the hair, and don't fall in love with anybody named Delilah.
Ooh, tempting.
But yeah, man, you're this chiseled Greek god of a man who is so much better than me in every sense of the word better. You're smarter. You're more handsome.
I can't handle these compliments, man.
You're better at putting mail inside mailboxes. Better than me.
You're too much. You're too much, sir. My good sir, my good friend. Thank you for having me, Andrew. And I've never been called a Nicaraguan Terminator before. I have been called Mexican, white, and a bunch of other things, but it's nice to hear the correct term, Nicaraguan. Will I ever be a Terminator? I don't know. The technology hasn't caught up here yet. But when it does, it'd be pretty cool to bench press 2 tons like nothing.
It's funny because I'm sure I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but I've had people ask me, "Hey, Andrew, are you a Caucasian or something?" And I'm like, dude, I'm darker than you. Like, what do you think? Caucasian? Out of all the things you could have picked. But anyway, I have heard Mexican. And I think that's another reason why I find you interesting, because before I got to know you better, we have a lot in common.
Yeah.
Just like you said, I've been called Mexican many a time. And I always had to tell people, like, no, sorry, I was never raised there, nor are any of my families from Mexico. No family member from Mexico. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not Mexican. And then they're like, then where are you? Where are you from? Well, like,
turns out we're neighbors.
Yeah,
geologically.
They asked me, so what nationality?
Geographically, my mistake. Oh. Geographically. Geometrically.
Yeah. Don't be so obtuse now.
Oh, I concur. I don't want to be obtuse.
But I would tell people, I would tell them, oh, I'm from El Salvador. And then what's their typical response? Well, isn't that the same thing as Mexico? Oh, God, man. It makes me just want to throw up in front of them.
What makes me
scoop it up and then just slather it on their clothing.
What makes me want to shake someone of that caliber is that, like, you meet this genuinely nice person, right? And in the conversation, generally, it's a nice person, right? Like, they seem like, you know, like a moderately, like, intelligent person, and they try getting to know you, but then they make this absurd joke, and I know it's a joke, right? But because you want to break the ice, but they make this joke like, oh yeah, it's the same thing. Like, well, I mean, yeah, if you want to, you know, round us all up and put us in a pen, yeah, I guess we're all Mexican, right?
I can think of this one coworker who is white, and he said that to me, like, oh, Salvadorian, isn't that the same thing? And I'm like, oh, so are you Australian? Huh? Are you English from
Wales? Wales?
Are you Wales? Are you Irish too? Like, no, it's not all the same thing. It's
what's your 23andMe score, sir?
Have you done a 23andMe?
No, but I've had other family members do it, and it's really interesting to see what their percentages are. I don't know exactly what my percentages are, but what my family has told me is that, you know, on my mother's side, her father was actually half native to whatever tribes were there in Nicaragua, and then half black. My father's side, he had his great grandparents were mixed with native and African, and yet I have the light skin complexion that my mother passed to me because of her mother. I'm sure that I'm a mix of colonial, African, and native, and I know that my tribe is called Mosquito, so we're the Mosquito people. Look that up on Wikipedia. It's pretty cool. We have our own native language outside of Spanish, and yeah, we've... So
you're telling me that your family comes from a line of these little flying insect things that like to suck on your blood? The mosquito?
We're vampires. Yeah, we're vampire people.
Oh, vampire. Yeah. I thought you said mosquito people.
We're yeah, it's funny how the
You better not be that AIDS carrying mosquitoes out here. Come on.
I don't...
I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
I don't think we carry... I think we carry dengue fever and yellow fever.
Did you hear about Bill Gates putting in vaccines in mosquitoes in, like, you know, rural parts of Africa or something, so that when a mosquito bites someone, it's actually inserting them with, like, a vaccine?
I never heard about that. That's fascinating.
I heard about it, and I have mixed thoughts about it. Anyway,
what is Bill Gates doing messing with immunology. I think that's the right. So, isn't he into computers?
Yeah, I don't know. He's like buying land all of a sudden, and I don't know.
Water wars.
Yeah,
it's the future.
I don't know. Anyway, look that up. It's pretty. It might be up your alley. I know you're interested in like crazy, bizarre scientific stuff, which we'll probably get to that on this podcast. But no, that's very cool about your history. You know, you're Nicaraguan. I'm Salvadorian. You say we're next door neighbors.
Next door neighbors.
And then here we are in the good old U.S. of A.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm like 50% Native American and then like 50% European, according to my 23andMe, like Spanish from Spain.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. They did come over here, conquered land, and then I was born. That's why I look like this.
Yeah, I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, I was born like this. I just got to accept it.
You look at yourself in the mirror, and then the mirror says, I'm not worthy of seeing your beauty. And then your mirror just flips over. I'm not worthy to be in the presence of Juan.
I swear, your compliments just get me to blush every single time, dude. You're too much.
Well, I want to talk really quickly on like how we met.
Yeah.
So obviously we met at the post office, delivering that good U.S. mail. And I remember when I first saw you coming through our double doors, I was like, oh, man, who's this guy think he is? Look at this chiseled Greek god of a man coming in here, better smile than me. Just, you look like the Terminator. That's why I called you the Nicaraguan Terminator, because if they ever need an actor to play like a Hispanic version of the Terminator, you're the guy. And so I'm like, man, look at this guy. And then you had this attitude of, you tell me to jump, I will say how high. Like you have this can-do attitude. Like, put me in, coach. I'm ready to do whatever it is I have to do to win. I saw you like jumping over things like an obstacle course. We had a coworker that called you the Navy SEAL. So I'm like, oh, he's a Navy SEAL. Of course,
calls me Navy SEAL every day.
So when I first heard that, I thought she was being honest, because I'm like, oh, he's a Navy SEAL. Okay, of course he's better than me. And then you're taller than me by half an inch, and I'm like, man, I just don't matter anymore. Juan's the new guy. He's like,
You sound like I was replacing you, Andrew.
Well, yeah. I mean, like you could be replaced on the Oscar awards.
Oh my God!
Like they can use you
as the template
for the Oscars, and it'd be a significant improvement. So, so here's this guy. All the ladies gravitating to him, not in a platonic way. I don't want to get you in trouble with the missus. But I'm like, man, here's this really cool guy. I hope he doesn't try talking to me, because, I mean, what's the point? Like, I'm just your average Joe Schmo.
I thought I was an average Joe Schmo. Is for you to put me up on that pedestal with compliments just fills me with joy, man. Thank you so much.
Well, the other thing is you started talking to my next door neighbor at the cases where we case up our mail every morning. Mm-hmm. And then you started talking to him about eating healthy. Like, we have this tradition at our post office. When someone gets a new route, they bring in donuts for the office. It's just a tradition. And then, the lady that calls you Navy SEAL, she gets on people's cases to make sure that they bring the donuts.
Yeah. And
when the Krispy Kremes came around, you were like, I don't eat sugar. I try to stay from that stuff. Food is fuel, and I just want to put the best octane in my body. Okay, I kind of made that stuff up there, but you had this attitude that food is fuel, and I just want to put good stuff in myself, which I completely 100% admire. But once again, you were like eating healthy, and every time I've tried to eat healthy, it never works out for me, because I'm not as disciplined. But here you were saying, I only eat nuts and oatmeal, and you had like these fancy power bars, which I still remember you gave me one. That was a nice gesture, and I think maybe that was the the olive branch.
Just a quick story behind that.
That was the
power
olive
bar.
branch.
That was the olive branch because, and what he means by olive branch is that I was extending a peace offering after making a horrible joke, which I thought it was funny, but quite honestly, sometimes when you say a joke that's funny to you, maybe it might not land the same way. So
do you remember the joke? Because
I don't. I think I made like a dad joke about us being a dad or something like that, or you being a dad, and it just like, to me it sounded funny, but then I had like a half a day to gestate on it, and then like I think Andrew in his right mind will probably take that the wrong way, and he should. So I'm gonna give him something to make up for that.
True, and at that point we didn't know each other that well. We just knew each other as coworkers.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm pretty sure you thought, oh, I don't want to step on anyone's toes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Andrew, he's growing out this beard, looks like a terrorist. I don't want him to blow up my mail truck. You know, no, I'm just kidding.
It's a really nice beard, man. I'm jealous you can grow a beard. I do not have the facial hair for that, man.
I don't know. I don't think I have that great of a beard. It's kind of thin, but
you just need to comb it and add oil, bro. It has potential.
I just stopped shaving. That's all.
Yeah, just stop shaving, bro. Be a caveman. Be a man's man.
So here you are coming to the post office. I know you eat healthy because you're talking to my next door neighbor. You know what? Let's touch on that. Like, that was a big thing that I took from you from the get-go. What has gotten you into eating healthy? Like, what is it?
A long time ago, growing up, my mom had graduated with a degree in clinical health.
Oh.
So she runs Healthy Way LA. But ever since I was a kid, my mom always instilled the importance of health. My father was never into anything other than drinking. And he's a very responsible individual. I saw him play sports when I was very young. He's not into weightlifting like I am. He's not into hiking or kayaking or swimming. He's just an avid soccer player. So kind of a mix of those two things really just set me on that right path. And looking into that lifestyle really gave me a lot of pride when you follow that lifestyle, whether it's, you know, if you want to be a martial artist or if you want to be a football player and you follow it to a T, there's a lot of pride that goes in that. I am happy that I look this way at the age that I'm at because a lot of other people don't. And it's a choice. And even if it's not a choice because of your life circumstances, taking those steps to at least go in that direction makes all the difference in the future.
No, that's beautifully said. I mean, I think for me, I think aging, even though, you know, we're not old people here,
No.
But just like you said, you're getting older and you kind of, I think as you get older, you realize, you know what? I'm not going to be young forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to come to an end. Might as well take care of this body that I have.
Yeah.
And I do my best. I think that's one reason why I bid on the route that I have, because it's a lot of walking. It's no apartments, and it's a lot of hills. So I kind of put it in my mind like, you know what? Yeah, this route is tough because I'm on hills all day, but at least it's kind of a workout. Mm-hmm. And
he's playing it off like it's kind of a workout. I've done your route, Andrew. You're selling yourself short. This man walks 10 miles on some pretty steep hills, especially Pascual Avenue. That right there, that is a good steep hill, man. And you're doing it with an intense amount of weight. That hill, everyone's ordering packages on that block. You're carrying at least 20 to 30 pounds, man. You should not sell yourself short. You are in shape.
Thanks, my guy. No, it is a crazy block.
Yeah.
It's the worst one on my route. But yeah, no, I'm like, a part of me is like, you know what? I think this will be good for my health. And that's a reason why I like our job is we're walking all day.
Yeah.
Also, we're out in the elements.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of nice being outside.
And it gives you time to think.
Oh, man, I do so much thinking. I listen to podcasts, all kinds of stuff. And yeah, you're right about that. Gives me time to think. And then it gives me time to talk to people. Like you're one of the people I started chatting it up with because turns out we have a lot in common. You have a kid. I have a couple of kids. You got your lady. You call your wife.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to find people our age. That was another thing, is I realized we're the same age.
We're just a year apart, man.
So we're considered millennials.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to find people that are in the same age as you, but you never, knew each other prior, but you realize all these things you have in common.
Yeah.
Growing up in the 90s, we had the best video games. I mean,
Mario Kart.
Mm-hmm. You said Pokemon.
Oh yeah, Pokemon. But you said it in another conversation. Pokemon was not allowed.
Yeah. Funny story. We got to break the fourth wall here. We had recorded about 38 minutes of the podcast prior, and then turns out I wasn't even connected, like hardwired into my computer. And that pissed me off a lot. And this is our second take. But I think it's going much better and much smoother.
Yes. But hey, it's always good to practice.
That's true. Practice makes perfect.
Yes.
But yeah, Pokemon in my family was of the devil, so we didn't have Pokemon. But
that's hilarious.
And like violent video games, and
Mortal Kombat and such. Yeah,
Mortal Kombat. Yeah, that was a big
Smash Bros. Even I can't believe your parents did not allow you to play Smash Bros. But hey,
it was too
when
violent, man.
When you're launching your opposing character to the horizon and defeating that character, I guess that could be considered violent.
And people think you're talking about video games, but you do that in real life. I'm totally kidding. You're like, these video games didn't make me violent. I just throw people off buildings on Saturdays.
They just broadened my imagination on how I could harm the other individual.
Wow. You're being serious.
Yeah. Hey, Assassin's Creed is probably one of my all-time favorite games played. Assassin's Creed 1, 2, 3. Man, talk about a time to be alive. The Xbox 360 will always have a special place in my heart. Well, we'll get into video games too, living the dad life and balancing your personal time with, being a dad.
Well, I want to camp out on video games a little bit longer.
Okay.
Because I have my 9-year-old son. And first it started off with Roblox. And I'm like, what is harmless? These little blocky characters. But he is online with other people, but you're not really he wasn't really chatting so much with people. But, he was making his way, figuring out Roblox. You can go to different worlds, and I guess people create different games within the game with different obstacle courses and whatever. I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. I actually was very impressed. I didn't know how intricate Roblox was. And, he got really good at it. He did go down the Minecraft world also. And he started building stuff on Minecraft. And I was impressed. I'm like, did you build that castle looking thing? He's like, yeah. I'm like, really?
That's really cool.
So he got really good at that. And then here's the thing. I'm a little ashamed to say it, but we give our kids like the iPads, and I think they're on it way too much. Okay, I know too much, and I'm not proud. Okay? All right.
Okay.
Hey, don't beat me up, man.
Well, the first step is admitting it.
Yes. But don't hurt me. I don't want those pythons grabbing hold of my neck.
God. Here he goes with the compliments again.
But anyway, so yeah, he spent a lot of time on the YouTubes with the kids, YouTube Kids. And he, for some reason, what are the videos that my son loves to watch? It's not like educational learning stuff. Lately it's a lot of video gamers recording themselves with their, little picture-in-picture of themselves playing the game.
Oh, like they'll have like the main screen is them playing, and then in the far right corner there's like a small view window of them playing it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And just commentating on everything that they're doing, screaming, yelling.
Question. Are the people that he's viewing making quick cuts to like zoom into like their reaction as they're dying or like facing like some kind of ridiculous like obstacle? Is the genre like just like quick cuts to like him playing and then quickly moving to his face, reacting, and then back to the gameplay and then back to him reacting to it again? Is that what he likes to see?
I'm pretty sure there's some of that.
Okay.
But a lot of it, it's mainly the gameplay on the big screen.
I see.
With the little picture-in-picture of the guy filming himself.
Okay.
There's this one family that does it. What are they called?
Family?
There's a family.
What?
It's like a main guy who's a gamer, and he plays with his little kids.
What? That's so cool.
What is it called?
I've never even heard of that. I'll ask my stepson later about that. He probably knows.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to. Oh man! And they came out with books and like comic book style books.
Graphic novels.
What the heck is their name?
I'm sure you'll find it. But that's really interesting that your son is into. I mean, does that mean that that he wants to connect with you playing video games? And
I think so, because he asked me to play Fortnite. Because he has a Nintendo.
And you actually played with him?
I have.
Yeah.
Because he has a Nintendo Switch in his room, and the PlayStation is in the living room.
Yeah.
And so he says, "Dad, can you play with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll play with you," because I know he's into it. Because me growing up, my dad was more along the lines of, "Oh, don't play video games too much. It'll turn your brain to mush." But I'm taking a different approach. I see the. I think there's something that can be learned from video games, especially for a kid. I think they can see video games as like an obstacle, something to overcome. So I'm letting him play. We're trying to limit his time because he could play for hours and hours and hours, and I don't think that's good. But yeah, I see my son as like a leader because he's playing on Fortnite, and I'm still impressed to this day. He managed to like make friends online to, hey, can you friend me? Can you friend me? And, sometimes I would hear like his little conversations with other people. And it just sounds like a 9-year-old kid talking like, hey, friend me. Oh, come on, let's play. Or, and it's kind of annoying, but also kind of funny because I'm like, man, what the heck are you kids saying? And you hear him screaming at random points during gameplay, like, come on. Oh my gosh. Oh, what the flip, man? What the flip? What the heck? Come on, res me. All these things.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I was saying, I could see him as a leader. I think it's helping him learn some leadership skills because when he's playing, he's telling people what to do.
Yeah.
It's like, you go over here, you go over there. Oh, follow me. Oh, go over here to this building. And I'm like, that's pretty impressive.
That's cool.
Because that's something you don't learn in school so much. Maybe you learn it on the playground during recess. If you're playing like or a sport.
Yeah.
But in the classroom, it's like you're not being taught leadership skills. That kind of develops over time. But when I see him kind of being a leader in the game, I'm like, wait, this is something he can apply in real life. So I'm trying not to tell him, oh, you can't play video games, this or that. But I kind of want to let him, because I think there are skills that he picked up real quick for a 9-year-old. I mean, when we were 9, we had probably Nintendo 64 was the most elaborate controller with all these buttons. Yeah,
when we were kids, you either had a PC where you could play games that were, PvP, or you had a gaming console. More than likely, you were going to play on a gaming console because that was popular back then.
Right.
I never played ever an online game versus anybody else. So picking up these skills of communication, there was a curve, right? Like later on when you got if you had a PlayStation 2 or an Xbox, like you may have played online, but Xbox Live was on finally, PlayStation Network was online. To hear your 9-year-old just like that, just communicate like that sounds really cool, man.
Yeah. and like he picked up because he got a PS5 for Christmas like 2 Christmases ago.
Nice.
But he just started playing Fortnite.
Did he play Spider-Man on the PS5?
Oh yeah, it came with it.
That's sick, dude.
But he stuck with Minecraft. Then I think he was able to get Roblox on there.
Did he happen to defeat the Ender Dragon on Minecraft? Did he show you that?
I hate to break it to you, my guy, but I'm not a loser. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Totally kidding. But I really don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry. Do me a favor. Ask your son, hey, can you show me the Ender Dragon and can you beat him? He's going to look at you with like, whoa, how do you know that? And yeah, like just hype him up and be like, I hear it's really hard to do that. And if you could do that, that means you're really cool, son. I'm going to be like, oh, Juan told me that. He's going to be like, can he be my dad instead?
No. Just come on. Take this one, man. Just take this one.
All right.
That's so cool. You know what? Play with him.
Dragon.
Play with him, connect online, and like tell him to show you the ropes, man. Make sure you get that diamond armor.
I'll have to do that.
That's so funny.
But yeah, what I was trying to get at was the PS5 controller. It has a lot of buttons on the top and the back, and he knows that thing like the back of his hand. Where every time I pick up the PS5 controller, I always have to look at it, inspect it. I have to inspect the top and the back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is that. Okay, triangle.
Wait,
is
what's
here.
R3? What's I have to click the stick.
Yeah, I'm like, this is X.
Oh, it's vibrating. Why is it vibrating?
I know. And when it vibrates, I just let go. I'm just kidding.
You chuck it across. Be gone, demon.
But man, these controllers are so elaborate. I mean, they have a headphone jack in them now. I'm so impressed with that, man.
When I got my first Xbox console, the 360, I was impressed that it came with its own headphone jack too. But God, the ergonomic form of it was just so good. But it'll never beat a PlayStation controller. In my opinion, it will never beat a PlayStation controller.
You know, I think the PlayStation controller evolved to be more like the Xbox controller. It's a little more round.
Yeah.
Because you can picture the original PlayStation
Doesn't it kind of look like a bat? You know, like the bat symbol now, the PlayStation 5 controller?
Yeah, it kind of does.
Yeah.
But the original was more smaller.
Yeah, it was smaller. It doesn't fit big hands like ours, bro.
But the new PS5, yeah, I feel like people knew, or I think the developers knew, you know what? Xbox is on top. I mean, they did it right the first time.
Yeah.
So I think because it looks different. It looks much different. It's a nice controller though. But yeah, that's me, and where I'm at being a dad is listening to my kids scream on Fortnite and trying not to slap them upside the head because I don't want to be a bad dad. But
just depends where you hit them. Makes you bad.
He's got to be able to hide it at school, right? Keep it don't let the teacher see. You know, that's what it's all about. JK. But
full disclosure.
But that's another thing that we have in common. You have a 9-month-old son.
Yes.
Apple of your eye.
He is a little monster, man, in every best way possible.
So I have to ask,
yeah,
because there's so many views on having children. Some people are like, yay, I'm having a kid. And some people are like, oh no, I'm having a kid. But, we got married, and then we decided to have kids early on. For many reasons. We don't have to get into them. But what was it for you? You were in a committed relationship, and was it something like, hey, I want to be a parent? Or was it one of you talking to each other? Maybe the missus was like, hey, I want a child. Or was it, baby, I'm giving you a child? I'm sorry. Was it planned or not planned?
Just taking what I want.
Conquering.
So you're going to have my seed, woman.
Whoa.
The origin story of my son is not for the faint of heart.
Oh.
So my son was not planned, but he was definitely planned for the future. Life just happens. I was so excited to know that I was going to be a dad. I didn't always have this idea of me being a dad in the back of my mind. I didn't think I'd be a good dad. And it's really simple. I'm not the most responsible adult. I don't always want to be responsible. I kind of want to be lazy. I kind of want to do my own thing. Sometimes, some days I just rather just stay at home, eat all day, and just watch stuff on TV. I'm not an avid goer of going to clubs or going out all the time and just spending money. I do, however, like going hiking. I do like going to the beach. I do like kayaking, biking. I do like skating on my e-board. I love doing things for me, and my girlfriend compliments me. She's an amazing woman. She's always willing to try out new things and doing those things with me. So when I found out that I was going to be a dad, I was over the moon. But I was also worried because now that I have a little one to take care of, I need to make a lot of changes. And the first change is to not be selfish anymore, to not think about what do I want to do. No, the mentality had to change. You have to change it to what can I do for the little man before I take care of myself. So when I found out we went to the hospital. We had been suffering through some symptoms. I say we because we are pregnant. She didn't believe that we were pregnant. We were on a cruise, and I told her, don't drink any alcohol. Don't eat anything that wouldn't be good for the baby. Let's just wait. She kept doubting, saying that maybe it's a stomach virus or something. I'm like, I think you're pregnant. And not to get a little too graphic, but her musk was different. Her skin tone was different. Her attitude was different. And I was getting very, very anxious, but in a good way. And we go to the doctor and they say, you're pregnant. And I'm just like, holy smokes. That's awesome. She was so scared, thinking that I wasn't going to be happy about that. And it was really refreshing for her. A lot of things were refreshing for her. She admitted that the first pregnancy, again, I have a stepson, her 14-year-old, the pregnancy was a little rocky with her first partner. So I'm glad that, I provided her a lot of security. She thanks me every day for that, for giving her the best experience that she could have ever wanted or asked for. When my son was born, I named him Leonidas. He was a decent weight, a decent size, but man, is he growing into a monster.
Hold the phone. Okay, you just can't drop that kind of information. Leonidas. That is an amazing name.
It is.
It's grand.
Mm-hmm.
It's
strong.
I'm awestruck by knowing that there's going to be a human being named Leonidas walking amongst us. I want to know, how did you get that name, Leonidas?
Yeah, so the idea
you opened up the baby book and you were like, okay, Greek gods, because I'm a Greek god.
We opened up Pandora's box with that one. The idea the idea behind that was we want to give him a good name, but we also want to make it a name that isn't very common. We don't want to just name him Michael. Michael is a very good name, biblical.
It's a nice name.
It's the archangel.
I think, believe it or not, I think Michael, it looks nice written out.
Yes.
It's a beautiful looking name. Okay.
Yeah.
No homo, but carry on.
I don't want to put down the Michaels out there. I mean, Michael J. Scott from The Office, great character. Michael is a good name. I've met a lot of Michaels in my life. I want to name him something that I've always liked. I thought Leon was always a good name, and there is a city in Nicaragua that is also called Leon, and I always liked that name. Dad, why didn't you call me something other than Juan? You named me after you. I'm a junior now. Juan is it's like Jose and Manuel. Come on. But it's okay. He wanted to name me
after Francisco.
And Francisco. God, that sounds so
Tell
nice.
me about your name, because when upon meeting you and talking to you, hearing you talk, the last thing I think you would be named is Juan.
Yeah.
I'm sure you get that a lot. And I don't mean that offensively at all.
No.
It's
and it's funny because what you're saying right now is exactly what I've heard for the last 25 plus years, going into like, middle school, high school, college, and beyond. I don't know if it's just because we live in the United States, but you meet someone that looks and acts a certain way, but then their name is like Jeff. You're just like, no, you don't look like a Jeff. You look like a Damien. Just yeah. So my father wanted to name me after him, and that's very sweet. And I love my dad very much. He's an amazing, caring. Wears his heart on his sleeve. Dad, I'm so sorry, but you do. He's very sensitive, even though he presents himself as a very Terminator-esque kind of person.
So you get that from him.
Yeah, he's a very masculine figure, old school kind of guy. Catholic, hit with a paddle kind of guy. Yeah. We're Catholic.
Not with the ruler, but with a paddle.
The ruler was ruler was a warm up.
My dad had a paddle.
Really?
He used it on us.
Ooh.
And the funny thing about this paddle is he wrote on the paddle with like a Sharpie, he wrote love, obedience, caring, kindness.
Why obedience?
I don't know. Obey your mom and dad. It's a Bible verse. But whenever he would use the paddle on us, he'd be like, listen, I'm doing this because I love you kids. Whapash!
This is how I love you.
Don't love me so hard.
Golly. Don't love me so hard. You did not just go there. Oh no.
So typically if people don't like their names, they go around with a nickname, right? Like you could have gone with John. Like if you said your name was John, I'd be like, I can see that.
Yeah.
But you are proud about introducing yourself as Juan.
Yeah, it took me some time to kind of get over that. Yeah, I could legally change my name, but everybody, most people, when you intentionally name someone, there's a reason behind it and there's a small story behind it, right?
Of course.
If my son Leonidas came up to me and asked me, Dad, why did you name me Leonidas? I would sit him down and I would gladly explain the culture behind Greece and one of the greatest warrior societies. For those of you who don't know and need to go read a book or need to go on Wikipedia, Sparta was home to these warriors named the Spartans. And there was a king named Leonidas. And there was an empire that was slowly taking over surrounding territories during that time period. I forgot what year. They were trying to expand their empire, and they were called the Persians? Yeah. So the Persians were actually, it was an amazing empire, but they were, the Spartans did not want to be taken over. Being a warrior society for 900 years, they had this mentality that, hey, we don't need walls. We don't need to worry about our women and our children because since birth, they're being groomed to be warriors. The Persians came over and they were going to take over Greece. Greece didn't want to defend themselves. They wanted to negotiate and establish peace right off the get-go. Because you're talking about a massive empire and a barely unified state, Greece, which is tiny. Leonidas was like, the Senate doesn't want to be a part of this battle. If we unify, we can hold out on this island. We can make it hard for them to invade us. I'm going to do something about that. So he took 300 of his best soldiers, which had already had sons because they needed to continue their bloodline, and lead a defense against the Persian Empire. And he said, all right, Persians, do your worst. And they held out for, I think, 2 days. I could be wrong. They held out for 2 days. I think Leonidas was 60 years old when he did this, and he was in peak physical condition. By the way, for those of you who don't know, you could not retire from military service in Sparta until the age of 60, and I think that's amazing. So Leonidas fought for his people and gave his all and died. And I think that's an incredible reason to name, to have such a strong name given to a child. I hope that my son at least can in some way I don't know. I just hope that name inspires him in himself to be the best that he can be in the future. And in today's world where things are so fickle and they're so thin and so uncertain, I hope that name at least, it provides that calling, like, I need to be the best that I can be. Now, that's not his full name. His name is Leonidas Michael Chamorro. Michael is his middle name. And I love my girlfriend so much. She's amazing, has the biggest heart in the world. She cried over cats being given away to a shelter once. That's how big of a heart she has. Michael was an adopted brother that recently passed a few years ago. And he sounded like an amazing individual. I never got to meet him, but she loved him so much. And when he passed, she wanted to name our son Michael. And I said, I don't know, honey. I really like this name. Leon was originally going to be the name, but Leonidas sounded way better. So, honey, I love you so much. I want to make you happy. So how about we give him the middle name Michael? And her face lit up and she was so happy. And I was happy that it made her happy. And that's what we settled on. So Leonidas Michael Chamorro is my son's name. I don't know what we're going to name the next kids, but this being a dad, this job of guiding the future of the next generation, the continuation of your blood, your history, it's such a noble thing to do. It changes you. And you asked me, Andrew, like, how do you feel being a dad? You asked it so casually and I got so deep into it. And
I did ask you that because I feel like we live in a culture where fatherhood or being a dad, it's not celebrated so much. I think there are like studies or statistics that show that people go all out for Mother's Day, spend millions of dollars. Okay, not like an individual spends money, but more money is spent on Mother's Day than Father's Day.
Ooh.
Mothers are definitely elevated, which they should.
They do kind of give birth to us, so
yes. I think there's something very special between the bond of a mother and a child. I think that's a very important thing because it's a sacrifice that a woman makes. Mm-hmm. And I think sacrifice is maybe the most important thing in life when someone sacrifices something, because it's showing I'm putting someone else above me. And that's just very, I don't know, there's something virtuous about that, And I think the culture is shifting away from virtue and more towards kind of like narcissism, like it's all about me. But when you can move away from me to something else should take priority, I think that changes some. Just like you were saying, when you had your son or when you knew you were going to have a child, you said, you know what? I have to make changes. And it's the same exact thing that happened to me. It kind of hit me later, though. I think after my son.
What do you mean later?
Like once I saw my son and I knew like, okay, I got to take care of him. And then once I realized what this actually means, because I think for me, I had to physically see my child. I think that's when I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Something has to change.
Yeah.
I can't just lollygag in college trying to figure out what I want to do, because at that point I had changed majors. And then I'm like, I'm wasting my time. I need to provide.
Yeah.
I need a steady job. And I went through various jobs, and then at some point I was like, no, I need something steady, because I was doing a job where it was contract based. So when there was work, there was work. When there wasn't work, there wasn't work. And I'm like, no, this is not going to work. I got to change that. I need something that's consistent, has good benefits. And that's how I ended up at the post office. But yeah, definitely having children, it does change something inside of you, at least for me. I mean, a case can be made about the deadbeat dad. Like, oh, who cares? which I think that's it's a shame. I think that we let people get away with that, or don't hold people responsible for their actions. And that's one thing about me that if there's anything that I wish I could tell the world is be responsible for your actions. Actions have consequences. Don't put off your responsibilities onto someone else when they're yours. And
that's hard when you work for the post office.
I would imagine it's hard.
Do you want to get into the post office?
Maybe we should.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're kind of teetering on the subject because, man, making such a dramatic change from trying to build your education and your career to I need to make a change and provide now. I'm pretty sure you didn't realize just how hard that transition would be. You were going to be a new father. You were going to be sleep deprived, and you were going to be physically pushed to your limits for months, probably for the next few years.
I remember it like it was yesterday. So I was excited that I got this new job, and I was thinking, oh, yippee, delivering the mail. How hard can it be? And I mean, let's face the facts. It's not difficult to get mail from point A to point B.
No.
It is.
If you're on flat terrain.
Right. It is a lot of heavy lifting. You know, you're lifting load from one thing to your truck, from the truck. You know, if you have like heavy packages or whatever, like you are carrying, it is laborious. Is that a word? Laborious? Laborious. See, you're smarter than me. It is laborious, but the task at hand when it comes to delivering the mail, it's not the hardest thing. Yes, you have to deal with the sun, the elements.
Yes.
That can change.
Yes.
And that can make things difficult. The job itself, it's a no-brainer, but then you have to deal with management and everything else that goes on in the office, which no one tells you about. And then once you really see, once you really see how it is, then it starts playing tricks on your mind. And I kind of don't want to talk too much about it because I don't know who's listening to this. So
yeah.
I know I have coworkers that listen. They probably know what I'm referring to, but let's just say there's some unfairness at play, and you're dealing with the seniority card.
No, I can't give you that day off. I'm sorry. What? You want that route? No, I can't give you that route, man. I'm sorry. No, he's gonna take it.
Right. It's all this. No. Like say a supervisor says, oh, you're going to do this route. And then you find out, oh, it's going to be a good day. But then someone else is like, no, I want that route. I'm above him. I have more seniority. And then boom, you get bumped off. And then your day goes south. The other thing that sucks about this job, the only thing that I think is tough for anybody thinking about going to the post office is you don't know what your day is going to be like when you go in. You think, okay, I'm going to do my route and go home. No, it's either, so many people called in sick, so you have to do 2 hours of overtime, 3 hours of overtime, and you can't plan it out. Yeah. You cannot plan out the time that you're going to get off. Yeah. You just don't know.
Yeah.
Now, the plus side is you get paid a little bit more for that overtime, but it's just one of those things where it's hard to plan anything.
I just want to share my experience because my experience coming in is a lot fresher than yours. I'm sure a lot of things have changed, but as a whole, it's pretty much stayed the same. At least the aspects where we both disagree with how things can go. But we won't get too much into that. Going back to finding out that I was a father and needing to make that change, I was working at Lowe's at the time just before transitioning to this job. And let me tell you, would I go back to retail versus working for the post office? Absolutely not. Retail in itself is a whole different animal, and I've done it long enough to know that it's a dead end.
That's crazy because I know I've applied at, say, Home Depot. Never got the call. And you said Lowe's. I imagine it's similar, but
it's very similar.
What was it? If there was like one or two things that
we can dive into that really quick.
What's so wrong about Lowe's? I mean, it looks like a good job. Like you're helping people find their things.
So let me give you a brief history
driving
on
the forklift. Come on.
Yeah, so Home Depot and Lowe's are the number 1 and 2 providers of like any kind of building material that you need to build a home. That industry is so corrupt and so ridiculously mismanaged to the core. Home Depot started out back in, I think, the 80s, and it was just one store, and they grew from that to a giant within the span of like 30 years. It went through this golden era with its employees that were paid very well because they were masters of the craft. If you were a plumber, you could go to Home Depot and get a good salary, run a department, and still get home and pay your bills with 40 hours and have an amazing amount of overtime and benefits. But as the industry grew and it became more of a corporate run company, things started to change. They started to become more streamlined. Other companies wanted to get a chunk of that pie, which was home improvement and home remodeling and home building. And all of these other companies wanted to home in on that and provide these services and goods as well. So Lowe's is a direct competitor, right? When I was a Home Depot vendor, I started to see that transition from the silver age of Home Depot to the now dark age. There's maybe one person covering every 2 departments for, unless...
Tell me about it. You ever walk in there and you're like, hey, can you help me find a flathead screwdriver? And they're like, man, hey, Billy, can you help this man out?
You're in the paint department. You're at, because there's no in hardware.
And then it's like, every time I'm there, and I hate asking for help because I can feel them not wanting to help me. It's like they don't want to do customer service.
Can I tell you why?
Why is that?
Because they're given a list of 40 things that they have to do to keep that department afloat. You have to be a jack of all trades. You need to know how to use a reach lift or reach truck to bring things down. You have to do what a supervisor does without the password access privileges to the system. Anything that a supervisor is doing, you're going to do that same thing, but you're not going to do the extra stuff that they have to do in a system where it changes and modifies things on the system. That's pretty much it. And you're going to be paid like crap. And you're going to be just so fed up and done with how things are run that you're going to leave, and then you're going to be immediately replaced. There's never going to be enough people. There's never going to be enough pay. It's just not what it once was. I've met so many tenured people that have worked there for 20 plus, 30 plus years that are so happy that they're going to be leaving. They're just putting in another year or two and they're going to retire, and they're going to have millions of dollars in shares that they're going to pay out. They do their job to a T, because any reason that they have to fire these people is going to ruin them. But they are so invested as it is that even if they get fired at this point, they're well taken care of retirement wise. But that's all I have to say about that subject. I'm glad that I transitioned from that retail life to this, because I worked as an employee for Home Depot, and then I became a vendor for Home Depot, and then I worked for Lowe's for a little bit, which is a mirror copy, trying to outcompete them. And they still operate the same way, even though they say that they're different and they pay a little bit more. But the post office in itself is a little bit, it's very different. So when I came into the post office, I had sent an application the very same week that I found out I was pregnant.
Whoa. Yeah. You were just ready to make a big change.
I signed up for job agencies. I hate office desk jobs. I hate working behind a computer. If you look at my background, it's always being on my feet, talking to people, working with my hands. So you want to sit me down? Golly, that's a bad time. But I'll do it if you pay me enough. And those jobs do pay well, but there's so much bullshit in those office jobs. If you're signing up for an agency to get a job, be warned. you're going to probably be in a place where they're churning people. They're not trying to keep you long term. Like, oh, if you stay with us for 3 months and you do a really good job, you'll become permanent, or 6 months, or whatever the bullshit contract is for the agencies. And I've seen so much bullshit. They don't want to keep you. They just want to keep paying the most minimum wage and just keep processing orders and filling out forms and processing orders.
Do you think that kind of reflects the post office though? Like sometimes I feel like whoever the carrier is, it's like like in the back of their minds, I sometimes want to say, especially like a new CCA, which is like the bottom entry level position. Yeah. It's like, we don't need you. You can be easily replaced with someone else. Have you ever felt that way?
Absolutely. That was my worry too. I hate Reddit, but when you go on Reddit, you're going to get the worst. You're going to get the worst summaries about any job that's out there. You want to be a firefighter and you go on Reddit? Don't. It's going to ruin it for you. You want to be a cop? Go on Reddit. It's going to ruin it for you. So I went on Reddit and I went on Glassdoor.com. I created an account specifically to read up on the post office. I heard so many good things about working for the post office. My mom had been urging me for like a million years to join the post office. And I ran into a postal carrier in my neighborhood. I ran into a postal carrier while I was at Lowe's, and he's the one that told me, oh man. And when he started telling me about some of the things that were going on, that just opened a window of worry. And then I spoke to the carrier that works on my block, and I asked him, and he's like, yeah, there are some things you're gonna have to watch out for. And then I just started digging. But when you're having a kid, you'll pretty much do anything to secure, what you need.
True. Once again, it's that sacrifice. It's like, okay, it might be unpleasant, but it's for the quote unquote greater good. Mm-hmm. Like it's for something very important. Yeah. So I'm willing to succumb to some, I don't know, bad management or whatever they try to spin at you, but
being mistreated, being pushed.
And you experienced that, right? At the first office you went to, right? I remember you telling me.
So when I submitted the application, you have to wait like 6 months, right? So I didn't get my hire notification until January. They didn't tell me that I had gotten in until freaking January. I found out that I was pregnant back like in October. So I was sweating bullets. Like, this baby's going to be here in no time. Come around, I think like March or February, they told me when I would come in, finally get the email, show up, do the processing, go through orientation, go through the academy. The academy sucked. Nearly fell asleep. The funny thing about the academy is that I didn't get into the academy. I didn't schedule that until 2 days after my son was born. I was scheduled the week of the same estimated time that my son would be born. I had that moved. So I was super sleep deprived and running on coffee during.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So wait, did I hear that right? Your son was born and then 2 days later
I started the academy.
Wow. So you had the biggest thing in your life right at the moment. Your firstborn son.
Yeah.
And now instead of being there, which typically you would have wished for like paternity leave, like, oh, let me spend this.
They don't do paternity leave.
I know.
Like the state does.
And you just want to be there with your son, but it's like, hey, start this new job already. Let's go. And oh man, would be.
Let me segue to
heart-wrenching.
It was. And just to segue, not to really divert from that, but to kind of add to that backstory there. When you have a life event happening, the post office nearly doesn't care because they will not move mountains for you. They follow a strict structure. They will say you either have to reapply and reschedule, like, and start a new hire date for orientation to happen, all that, or you do it now, but we won't move you to a month from now or 2 weeks from now. This has to happen today. Why? I don't know. I don't understand. They were discouraging it sounded discouraging, like, oh, this job is not for you if you're having a baby.
I remember that. Well, not if you're having a baby, but I remember orientation. I felt like that day was to weed out the weak. Because
the conflicted.
The orientation, you would think it's like, okay, welcome, let me tell you all about this job. But no, it was like, this job, don't go through with it because you're going to suck at it. So just leave now. That's what it felt like. The whole orientation, day one before training is, let me tell you all the reasons why you want to leave this job right now. Right?
Absolutely.
And then it's funny because I did see people walk out of the room and like day two.
I did see the next day. So 3 days, it's 3 days of orientation, right? Mm-hmm. So by day 3, we had already lost 5 people out of the 29 that were there. And then by the end of academy training, I think it was like 4 people had transitioned from being carriers to clerks. And there were only, I think, like 18 of us in this academy class. I'm sure there's more in training classes, it just depends. But just to see people shift like that, or just people not show up after a while, it's just like, man, what am I getting into?
I'll never forget, in the academy, there was this young girl in there in the same class with me, going through the motions as I was, taking notes, all that good stuff, watching PowerPoint presentations. And we sat next to each other, and I'm like, hey, so what do you think about this job so far? And she's like, oh, yeah, it's nice. And she's like, yeah, my boyfriend's a mail carrier. I'm like, oh, okay, so you want to do the same thing he's doing. Oh, that's kind of cool. And I'm like, well, what does your boyfriend think of the job? How long has he been doing it? And she's like, oh, he's been doing it for about a year, and he doesn't like it. I was like, what? It's like, so from firsthand, you hear from your boyfriend, he doesn't like the job, but you apply for the job?
Probably. I mean, if it made sense, she probably would have said something along the lines of, but he gets paid decent.
I know. That's pretty much it. Because I remember starting off, you did get worked to the bone.
Yeah. When you started off, I've always wanted to ask you this question, but when you first started off, did they always give you the shittiest routes? Excuse my language.
Oh, 100%. It was always the ones that nobody else wanted to do, but then the supervisor would look at you or me.
With minimal experience that you already had, like you were capable.
But because they see this, tall hunk of a man.
Yes.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, because you're built like a tank, dude. Like, why the heck should you not be able to? Yeah.
They see this Terminator-looking dude walking into the post office, handsome. All the ladies are trying to get a piece of you, but I
never get exhausted. I never get tired. I don't even need sleep. I don't eat. I don't use the restroom. Right. I can do it all.
Exactly. We're pepper spraying the ladies off of you, that kind of stuff. They look at you, people like you and me, tall men, young, fit looking. Well, you're fit. I'm fit looking. And they think, oh, let's give him the worst, hardest route that nobody wants to do because they keep complaining or can't finish on time. This man, he'll do it. And if he doesn't do it, we'll threaten him with
a write-up.
A write-up.
Ooh.
And that's all it is. It's like, hey, you need to hurry up. You need to hurry up. You got to go faster. You got to go faster. Because with them, it's all about the time.
After about 6 months of this, you start to realize that it's all just fluff. It doesn't matter. You will adapt. You'll start to ignore the bullshit and the threats. You'll start to get a little bit of respect once they notice that you aren't a pushover. And then it starts to get easier, but only after you've suffered and suffered and suffered.
And that's one of the things I was going to ask you about. I wanted to see if you feel the same way, but I've always had the idea of, you gotta do your dues, your due diligence.
You gotta pay your dues.
Pay your dues. That's what I was looking for.
That way it's like, yeah, the post office can be that kind of place where nobody wants to be there. Everyone is having a bad day. But it's the understanding between you and me, Andrew. Like, we can just look at each other and we're just like, oh yeah, it's going to be that kind of day. And it's that understanding where we all lift each other up a little bit. You know, I've seen it. I've seen how other people can help each other out and make each other's day better. Just that little bit that makes a difference.
True. Having like a companion in the workplace, it definitely helps a lot. But yeah, like I was saying, like in my head, I thought, okay, it's going to be rough at the beginning. Any new job is going to be rough at the beginning. And so I just expected it to be bad at first, and then over time it'll get better. But I was a CCA for, 3-4 years? A long time. When I was expecting maybe to be a CCA 1-2 years. But it was always rough.
That's awful.
I mean, there's some things that are out of our control, right? I mean, the pandemic hit. Well, for me, it hit when I was in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So
I heard it was really rough on anyone that joined during that time.
Extremely rough. We didn't have the carriers, so everyone was basically everyone was being maxed out on overtime. And of course, people couldn't shop. So everyone was doing online shopping. So our package volume was through the roof. So it was insane. We were delivering mail till like 11 o'clock at night every day, no breaks. Yeah. They told the CCAs, no days off. You're coming to work. You work 7 days and get the 8th day off. That's what we were doing. Yeah. It was horrible. But, that was out of our control. We couldn't control the pandemic or how it was going to go. But legally, if people needed time off, they could get the time off with no penalty. So it was a rough time. However, now that I turned regular, and hopefully this gives you a little bit of hope, it does get a little better. Yeah. I mean, I'm not making as much as a CCA because CCAs get more work than the regulars because, you're cheap labor, my guy.
Thanks.
You're cheap labor. No, I'm just kidding.
Thanks.
No, I mean, you do get paid less, so they're going to use you more.
I realize that.
And that's just the animal that we're dealing with here. That's just the way it is, I guess.
I kind of want to touch on the previous place that I was at before I transferred over here. What a difference of atmosphere transitioning from if I didn't make it clear before earlier in our conversation. I transferred from one station to another after I completed academy. The first station I was at, nobody was afraid to express just how much they hated the place or management. So much so that the manager got kicked out of that place. Then getting a transfer over because it was a hostile work environment thanks to that particular manager at that location. I came over to this new one, and I've never received like the kind of welcome that you guys gave me. Guys were cheering, saying like, "Oh, we want this guy on our team. We want this guy here. We have, sport tournaments, volleyball, baseball. We want him on our side." Everyone was so welcoming for the next month, just coming up to me, and they still do. A lot of people still do. The kind of camaraderie that I've always been looking for, I found it at this place. I have no complaints, man, especially working in your section, your district. I have nothing else to say but good things.
Yeah, I mean, I always felt like in our zone, the people were much more friendlier than the original one you were in. No offense to anyone listening, but I don't know. I think it's the territory. I think our zone is a little quote unquote nicer.
Yeah.
And sometimes
aesthetically, not just like route wise, but aesthetically.
And I don't know, maybe that has something to do with it, but that's kind of why I try to stay in our zone. One, because that's where I started working there, and I got to learn all the routes.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to being a mail carrier, once you learn all the routes and how they're set up, the job gets much easier.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you've realized that being there.
Yeah.
How long have you been there now?
It's gonna be, I think 7 months almost. It's gonna be.
Man, you're still a baby.
Yeah, I'm still a baby, man. Dude, it's funny. I'm sure you've had like these moments of clarity where I can remember very clearly when I was put on my first route here at this station. And you're looking at the amount of mail and parcels because they put you on a baby route. They call it a baby route. And you're like, okay, cool. You start learning. You pick up on your mistakes. You're being hard on yourself. I was super hard on myself. Imagine being sleep deprived every single day, being tired. You have a new baby. And then you're coming into this job and you're just like, everything's riding on me. I got to pay all the bills. And you're fucking up. Sorry, excuse me. You're fudging up all the time. And you know that they know that you're fudging up, and it's what they say and what they don't say. It's how they treat you and how they don't treat you. And you're just like, are they gonna get rid of me? Are they gonna say today was my last day? Are they just gonna slap me with that? Well, then what am I gonna do? I have to get better. And you push yourself and you push yourself, and then the routes get harder and harder. And you're just like, damn, and I thought the last route sucked. But then you start noticing after a while that you're getting better at it, and slowly but surely. Man, it gets easier and easier, but then it also gets harder too, because now you're really starting to get into that, like that groove, like that level of performance that they want you to be at. And I still overthink it sometimes.
Yeah, be careful with that. It took me 4 months to finally get my groove. It took about 4 months for me.
That's really good.
But it took me a year to finally get past the physical pain, like walking every day. And
I'm sure you never did anything as laborious as that.
No, never. That I tell people that is the hardest physical work.
And you're a big guy too. Like you don't look like a slouch. So to hear you say it, I mean, you got to, at least you're modest about it. Cause like some guys, they don't even talk about what a struggle it is. Like they talk about it like it's a Tuesday.
Yeah. I think if people come from like, let's say construction, or I don't know, any job that's outdoors, it's an easy transition. But if you're like me, let's see, I did fast food. I did customer service. I did about a year of land surveying. So that was outdoors, but you're just standing in one spot and moving around a little bit. But walking 10 to 15 miles a day in the hot sun
with weight on your back.
Yeah, it took time for me to develop that stamina.
Yeah.
But now enough about the post office. I was wondering if we could land this plane. Is there any final things that you wanted to ask me? Because we're coming up on a little over an hour.
Yeah. This day and age where we rarely have time to be good to ourselves and give ourselves what we need, it's always important to take care of yourself. If you're making a lot of sacrifices for your family or for the things that need to get done, just be kind to yourself and eat a little bit better, and just don't be so hard on yourself.
True. Because you know what? In life, you think it's going to go one way, and then before you know it, it goes a completely different way, and you're like, well, it's not going the way as planned, so my life must be bad or must be wrong. And then you start to think, oh, what went wrong? But like a new realization I had is, you know what? There is no direct like roadmap to life. It's going to go in any direction, and that's just part of the journey. Like if you're scaling a mountain and then there's like a tree that fell over, and like, well, I was trying to go straight through, now I can't. Well, I just go around it. It might take you a little bit longer to get around, and it might take a little longer to reach that destination. I think life's the same way. Like,
yeah,
you think it's going to go one way, and then bam, you have your son, and you're like, oh man, I got to change some stuff, and maybe that thing that I wanted to do, I'm not gonna be able to do it anymore. But maybe you will. It's just gonna take a little bit longer to get to that point, because now, hey, you have another responsibility. That's, hey, it's very important. You can't neglect it.
Oh, dude, but I'm so looking forward to pretty much reliving my whole childhood vicariously through my son.
Oh yeah, I think that's something that's possible. I mean, like my son with the video games, like I wish I could have played some pretty cool video games, but I see him playing and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. He's so good at it. I see my daughters, they're doing really good. They're in swim class and they're so good. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, man, I never learned to swim very well, but I see them doing it. And I'm like, well, now whenever we get invited to a pool, like I'll feel good about letting them play in the pool. They know what they're doing. So yeah, you see your kids doing stuff and you'll be proud. You're going to have a lot of proud moments. My advice to you is take a lot of pictures. Spend a lot of time with your son whenever you can, because you said he's 9 months. These are, I think, from the age that your son is now to about 3-4, before they start to talk, it's a very, very nice time. Yeah. Enjoy every moment of it, because then they start to talk back and you're like, oh no.
Is it weird that anything that he does is not annoying to me?
No.
Yeah, it's weird because I've always been a very outspoken person when things get on my nerves, and there's a lot of things, especially people. So it's just the funniest thing that even if he just slaps me across the face, which babies do, they will grab you and they will hurt you, and they don't know what they're doing, and they just move on with their day. But you're just like, damn, that scratch really looks bad, and that doesn't bother me.
I think it's because that whatever they do, it's not intentional. No, because they're just a baby. They're a child. They don't know better. You and I, we know right and wrong. Yeah, they are just figuring it all out, and you know that.
But I love him so much, dude. And all I want to do is I just want to kiss him, and then I just want to eat his feet.
Dude, stick to your healthy eating, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was there anything you wanted to ask me? I think, if we were to end the podcast,
I really don't want to, because like we still have like 5 other things to touch. Like for example, that video that I sent you on YouTube. I know you have another podcast for politics and religion, but I really wanted to touch on Photon, and I wanted to see what your mind is like, how it changed your perception or what ideas it gave you. I really wanted to talk about that. And if you want to dive into that in another podcast in the future, that's cool. But if you want to talk about it now, I'm also cool with that too.
Ooh, you know what? Like, I wish we could talk for another hour. Mm-hmm. And I'm still kicking myself that we had that technical issue at the first run of our recording. But I'm getting swamped with messages. My wife needs help.
Oh God. Well then, could I ask you that last one that we have here on the list, the very bottom one?
For sure. But I do got to tell you, like I was hoping to talk about the Photon movie. Okay. Maybe we can do this again another time. Would you be willing to come back to Simple Times Podcast?
Absolutely.
All right. Because you had your whole thing of questions. And I'm like, oh, it's so good.
I mean, we did cover all of yours for the most part. We didn't get into the eating healthy portion, which is fine. Like that's always something we could touch back on later.
But yeah, what was the one question you were going to ask me right now?
All right. So just to be very precise on this question, you're a man and you're a big man. You're a father. So being a father means that you have to be a protector. You have to be a provider. You have to be dangerous, because if you're not dangerous, you can't protect the ones that you love. You have to be a connoisseur. You have to appreciate the very things that you're going to show your children. You have to know them well. You have to be a multifaceted person, a jack of all trades. So you're a good-hearted individual. You're a very kind-hearted man. The things that have shaped you, the events in your life that have shaped you to who you are, Can you think back to a time where the single one life event, if it had not gone the way that it had, if it had gone in a different direction, do you think you'd be very different now? Do you think it would change some aspect of you? What do you value about yourself? And what is it that you wouldn't want to change? I think that's the question I want to ask. Like, what do you value about yourself so much now, and how and why is that?
Wow, that's a very, very deep question. Whew.
Do we have time for that? I apologize.
I think we do. I'll try to keep it short and sweet, though. I'll try to be precise.
Okay.
So I think something that I've been thinking about a lot is the idea of nature versus nurture. Like what? Because there's so many characters in life. The more I live, the more I see different people, the more I see their behaviors, the more I see how they treat one another. You see the good, you see the bad in people, but then like anyone, even a good person will sometimes do bad. A bad person has the capability of doing good. And of course, me being, a Christian, you think about the idea of good and evil, you think of the idea of sin and, living a virtuous life as opposed to living a sinful life. And I wonder, because I see my children, they're innocent, right? Kids don't know any better. They have to be taught how to be good, kindness, how to treat people. And people have to be taught that. And sometimes I wonder, maybe some people around us, maybe they weren't taught that. Maybe they didn't have the best parents. I'm fortunate enough to have had, decent, not decent, really good parents. They were really good. They were always there for me. And I understand, not everybody has that. But I also wonder if it's in us, like in our DNA, are we built to be good? If we're just built that way, then it's like we don't have a choice, right?
Yeah.
Or our personality.
Yeah.
Or I lean more towards the free will side. We have the ability to choose how we live our lives. I think that's equally true. So I think what my parents handed down to me, since, we're talking about being parents.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing that I realized when I became a parent is, what do we want to pass down to our children? I think my parents passed down something very good to me, which, is my faith. I think that plays a big part, the belief in God. And even though it may not be super popular, but I do believe it's very important. And
I hate that you say that it's not super popular.
I know. It's not. I think we have, the culture has become very much more secular. And you can see this in the arts. You can see it in TV, in movies, in music, in art, where when Christianity was quote unquote popular, a lot of art resembled the saints, and you see it in the Catholic churches.
Yeah.
It's this idea of trying to portray beauty. And I think we as humans, we know beauty when we see it. I think that's one of the reasons why I like art, is we could see something and we know if something's beautiful or not. We can see, us being heterosexual men, we see a woman,
Yeah.
we could tell, that's a beautiful woman. We know these things when we see it. And I think people have turned away from trying to make the most beautiful art and stuff like that. And just, I don't know, I've seen some really weird modern art, and I'm like, that's not nice to look at. Why do I want to look at this? But I think, art reflects the culture, and I see what the art that's coming out, and I'm like, I don't know if this is beautiful or not. It's hard to tell. I don't think it is. And so I think culture has shifted away from beauty. I think, God is the most beautiful thing because he created us with a mind and all this.
Yeah.
So all that to say,
God, I'm so stuck on you saying like it's not very popular. God, it's just so, it feels like it's so true.
And another thing is science. I think science has a lot to do with that. When people try to figure out how the world works,
The more answers we get, the more it devalues religion.
I think so.
Or the religious values and faith. And
Right. And don't get me wrong. I think you can have both, though. I think there's a lot of good that comes out of science, like, say, the medical industry and all that stuff, surgery, and all these really, really great achievements in like modern medicine and stuff. But then at the same time, on the flip side, you see all these commercials for a new medicine. Ask your doctor about this new medicine. I'm like, really? More medicine? Like, is it really medicine? Medicine's supposed to help people.
Yeah.
But if you're just jumping from one thing to another, it's like, is it really helping? Anyway, these are things that I think about.
Yeah.
But, I think learning about God is something that has really guided my life. I think everyone needs some sort of direction, and I think for me, the belief in God kind of gives me that direction. It points me somewhere, and I think people need to have direction in life. They need to know where they're going. Like when I see my son, I'm like, okay, and my kids, I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I got to be a parent. That gives me a direction. When I go to work, I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing here. And it scares me to think there's people out there that they don't know what they're doing at all. They're just going day by day. But
Lost.
So I think, having goals, having plans in life, having a vision for the future is very important. And I think what separates us from the animals is that, one, we know we can plan ahead. I heard something from someone that unlike animals, humans, we know that we're going to die. Like we know, and we can plan accordingly. So I think we're given knowledge and wisdom. It comes from somewhere, and I think if you follow things to its logical conclusion, it has to come from God. Wisdom and knowledge and all that kind of stuff. So, that's just me. Like, my faith in God is what kind of drives me forward. And that's something I wouldn't change, is really sitting down thinking. I think we have brains for a reason. I think we're given the ability to think. And really, I think sitting down and thinking through these hard questions of life, if you can get through it, it'll make you a better person. So I'm thankful that I have taken the time to think about these really hard things about life. And I'm not saying I know it all. And I think that's another beautiful thing about life is we're always learning, And I think that's a beautiful thing. And like when you showed me the video, when I saw that photon video, I'm like, man, this stuff is crazy. One, it was a beautiful piece of art, but also very controversial. But it gives me something to think about, because it's the movie was trying to explain like what a photon is and the beginning of.
It was trying to explain the fundamental forces of reality and how gluons form into bigger particles, and how particles form atoms, subatomic particles in atoms, and then how atoms form molecules, and how molecules eventually form patterns to create DNA, and then structures like cells and so on. So that video, I know to you, yes, very controversial because you're a man of faith, and I highly respect you and your faith, and I appreciate so much how you carry yourself and how you present yourself, because you're like one in 50,000. I don't meet people often like you. And I'm sorry that I showed you that video. I shouldn't have showed it to you.
Not at all. I'm really thankful that you sent me that video, because I probably wouldn't have stumbled upon it on my own. And I do appreciate how much because we talk about scientific stuff on occasion when we're delivering the mail, and we call each other up on the phone. And I find it interesting that I have always liked science, but I do know like the scientific field, it seems like to me that it tries to go against God, but I think they can work in tandem, science and faith. I think it goes hand in hand. I think the reason why we say want to shoot rockets into space is the idea of, we know that there's something out there. We see the stars at night. I mean, well, we can't see the stars at night because we live in a city, but before cities and light pollution, you could see the heavens, is what they called it, right? The heavens. And I've been to Sequoia National Park, and at night you see so many stars, and it is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It's one of those things where it struck me so hard that I'm like, wow, I can't see the stars like this back home. But here in a national park, like it lights up the ground for you. And I'm like, I remember seeing that and was struck how beautiful it looked. And I think we want to know what's out there because of beauty, kind of how I mentioned art and all that. And I think people want to get to the bottom of things. They want to understand better. And I think that's where science plays a vital role, is trying to understand, why do we think this is beautiful? Why do we think there's something out there? And of course, hundreds and hundreds of years of scientific advancement, we can find all these answers and make some sense of it. And I think what the video, the Photon movie, was trying to do, I think it did a very good job of explaining like the fundamental basics of like how an atom works and what a photon is, and how it does a good job of trying to explain scientifically how the world began, and what the future of the world could look like. And I did find it very, very interesting. Artistically, the video was beautiful because it looked like I was looking at something real. I think most of the imaging, like the imagery, was like computer graphic stuff.
Yeah.
But it does a good job of explaining the things that we can't see because it's like subatomic kind of stuff. I thought it was beautiful, and it made some sense, and it made me kind of challenge my thinking, I guess, because I think science is trying to understand the world around us. It's trying to explain what's happening. And I mean, it's hard for me to say, like, for me, like, you called me a man of faith, so I'll wear that with, like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
Like I would say, it still takes faith to believe in the things we can't see, and like those subatomic particles, you can't see them, but you still have to have some type of faith to trust the scientists doing these studies and trying to illustrate it. I think they do a really good job of it in that movie. I think I'll post the link of the Photon movie in the show notes for anybody who's interested. And I think scientists are trying to do what scientists have been doing all along, trying to explain how the world works. My only thing is, okay, let's say it did start from this like photon particle. My question as a man of faith, quote unquote, is why did it happen? That's always going to be my question. Why did it happen?
Can I kind of like tickle that question?
Sure.
So they recently found a gigantic gap in the cosmic background radiation. There is this universal field of background radiation that they suspect was left over from the Big Bang. So when the universe had just barely formed, the shock wave of energy was sent out. And that's the first wave of energy that redshifted to the point where we can't visibly see it. But if we use an infrared camera or telescope, we can peer so far into the past, because the further out you view, distant galaxies and such, you can see that radiation, right? To kind of tickle that question of yours, like, why did it happen? They saw so far out into the distance because there was a small gap in that area that they looked into where they found more galaxies fully formed, and it breaks their model and understanding of the early universe, which was painted to have formed about 14.7 billion years ago. So the idea is that maybe the universe is either older than we know, or it truly is infinite, and that this portion of our region in this segment of the universe, which is already astronomically unfathomably huge, this area had formed already, but there are still vast reaches far beyond anything that we can understand further out, other portions of our universe that are already expanding or aging. So if the universe really is infinite, then it's just constantly recycling itself, expanding, contracting, contracting. Like, maybe perhaps there is no reason, or maybe perhaps there is a grander scheme of things that we just don't understand yet. I cannot answer that question, Andrew. Why?
I know, and that's I think that's why we have faith and deal with faith, is we can use our reasonable faculties in our brain to try to reason the things that we can't scientifically prove. And I mean, one thing that video did for me, it did make me feel really small.
Oh yeah.
It made me feel really small. But then, but at the same time, thinking about the molecules and the atoms and all that stuff, at the same time, it made me feel really big at the same time. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's a pretty big miracle to say that we're here, and that we know that we're here, and that we understand how we're here to a certain degree.
Because, like, I can look at you, you can look at me. We know we're two human beings. And just this conversation alone, like, we have so much in common. We didn't know each other before the post office, but here we are having a conversation. It's like, I really, like, who would have thought you would be in my garage at this moment in time? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy. And the same thing, like I just said, I felt so small and I felt so big at the same time. It sounds contradictory.
Yeah.
But there's some things that I think my interest in life is the unexplainable thing, trying to figure out the things that can't be explained. How can you feel so small yet so big at the same time? That doesn't make sense. But it does. I don't know.
Can I just be like a pessimistic philosopher for a second?
Sure.
Because I know we're trying to wrap up, but God, like, that is a contradiction. You feel so big and you feel so small. And
then, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No,
but then you see your son.
Oh, yeah.
He's small.
Yeah.
But in a different way, too.
Mm-hmm.
You have 35 years under your belt being alive. You have all this wisdom, knowledge. Your son still has yet to learn everything, but you know he's going to go through it.
Yeah.
So, of course, that's going to change you.
Oh, it scares me, man.
It is scary.
Yeah.
Let me say this. I'm sorry I cut you off, but I have to say it before I forget.
You're good.
I'll never forget the feeling there's this feeling when I saw my son for the first time. It was a really intense fear, because it was almost like my life flashed before my eyes. It was almost as if I was able to see my entire childhood up to this point. It's like a movie played in my head of everything that I went through.
Yeah. And
then thinking my son's going to go through the same thing. Not the same thing, but, He's going to have
his own life.
He's going to have his own life. All the challenges that I went through, I know he's going to go through. Maybe not exactly.
It almost sounds like instinct.
Right.
It's like your dad mentality is activating there.
Yes. And I think, I guess to me, that's very interesting, is that I felt that for someone else who is a part of me, at least genetically has some of my genetics, at least scientifically, that's how you can prove that they belong to you. But that feeling, and then it, like this overwhelming fear, like came upon me. And then I think that's what led me to what we were talking about earlier, was like, something's got to change. Mm-hmm. Like, I got to be a better person for this person. And I don't know. I think that is something spiritual, because I don't think it can be explained with science. I don't think you can calculate it, quantify it. Mm-hmm. But I do believe scientists are trying to figure it out. I think they're getting really close, which I think is a little scary. But hey,
But like, and coming full circle back to the idea that you feel so big and so small, like every answer opens the door to the possibilities that we don't know as much as we thought we did. So even if they quantify one thing, it just opens up the possibility that there are more questions to ask about that single answer. Okay, so now we know why it is that we love, but what is the reason behind it? And what's beyond that? I think what you said about feeling so small and so big, yeah, you feel small in the infinite of space. You feel so small because you know your limitations. You know that you can't go beyond the realm of like this planet. You can't go beyond the realm of seeing what's beyond this galaxy, or going far off to the very edge of existence. You know that you probably won't ever. I don't know how to say this without sounding too metaphysical. You can take psychedelics, you can take drugs, and experience an aspect in your mind, but you probably won't ever experience something like a miracle, or something that challenges your previous understanding of what reality is. And that makes me feel small. Maybe I won't ever experience something by God. Maybe I won't experience something of a miracle, but at least I got to experience having a kid, and that's pretty amazing in itself.
I think that's a miracle.
Yeah.
At least I believe it is. It's another question when I was watching the Photon
You have
movie.
a question for me?
Well, a question that arose in my head.
Oh.
Was, I think this is stupid.
Do you want to pause it and ask the question? We could talk about it another time.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We're coming up close to 2 hours. So, you know what, Juan, I just want to say thank you for coming to the Simple Times podcast, where, you know what, I don't think we kept it simple for the last
yeah, it really
podcast.
The subjects kind of got away from us.
But, we touched on a lot of simple things, fatherhood, having children, work. Those are the simple things. And when we got to the sciencey stuff, that was more philosophical. That was, we'll say that for the Complicated Times podcast.
Looking at the board to the right, we never touched on the first thing on there, but we're definitely going to have to touch on that later.
Some other time.
Yeah. But thank you so much for having me. It was a blast. I'm so honored to be here, and I can't wait for the next one, man. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome anytime to come to Simple Times podcast. I had a blast. Sorry about the technical difficulties at the beginning, but I think we cleaned up the show the second go around. And this was a very fun conversation. You are a very interesting person to talk to. You
Thank you.
You make me feel dumb sometimes.
No.
You do.
No. Don't ever feel like that, man. Don't. There are some truly dumb people out there, but you are not one of them.
You know what? You're right about that. All right, Juan, thanks again. Oh, before we completely shut it off real quick, I just want to tell our listeners, follow Simple Times Podcast. We have an Instagram page. We're on YouTube. I mean, wherever you're listening, I just want to remind everyone, hit like, hit subscribe, give us a good rating. It really helps us out. If you have any questions, comments, send them to our email address, simpletimespodcast@gmail.com. If you want to hear more podcasts that are part of the BEACHGLASS Media Network, listen to my personal podcast called Faith and Politics with Andrew Reyes. And if you want to hear Marcelo's other podcast where he talks about horror movies, A Fear in Review. All these podcasts are on Apple, Spotify. You can find them there. Thank you, Juan. This was a great episode, and I'm going to end the show with a song that you introduced to me, which I fell in love with. So here it is.